Good evening, and thank you for joining tonight's virtual public meeting hosted by the City and County of Denver. My name is Hannah Reimer, and I will be your moderator tonight as we talk about the Community Transportation Network in South Central Denver.
Buenas tardes, damas y caballeros. Bienvenidos a nuestra reunión pública de la ciudad y el condado de Denver. Esta reunión está siendo transmitida simultáneamente en español. Si usted necesita o prefiere escuchar esta información en español, por favor presione *0 en su teléfono. Gracias.
Thanks, Gabby. I'm joined tonight by a number of transportation experts from the City and County of Denver and our project team that you'll be hearing from shortly. They include Jennifer Hillhouse, Sam Piper, Gabby Serrato, Ashley Grace, and Bryce Hammerton. We have residents on the computer and on the phone here to hear about our new approach to mobility planning in your neighborhood called the South Central Community Transportation Network. If you are dialed in by phone but would like to see the presentation we're referencing tonight, you can go to www.ctnvirtualopenhouse.com and follow along. However, this is not required for the meeting. Let me tell you a little bit about how to provide feedback during tonight's public meeting. If you would like to ask our panel a question, you can type your question into the question box on the website, or you can press *3 on your phone and you will be connected to an operator who will take down some basic information. You'll be returned to the call and can listen to the conversation until it is your turn. Note, while you are submitting your question, you will not hear the presentation. The presentation is being recorded and will be posted to the website following the meeting, and you can reference that as well. After the call, we'll review any questions that weren't able to be answered due to time and develop an FAQs document that we'll post on the website, which is, again, www.ctnvirtualopenhouse.com. We're going to divide tonight's meeting into 4 sections. For the first 10 minutes or so, our panel will provide an overview of the Community Transportation Network, including the project vision and goals. At about 5:15, we'll discuss the South Central area with specific information about past and current projects and answer your questions. Right around 5:30 p.m., we'll focus on how people move through South Central Denver as pedestrians, on bikes, taking transit, and/or driving. And we'll also allow time for more questions. Before we wrap up, we will review a new interactive mapping tool as a way to collect feedback from our community members. We'll also be asking some survey questions later during the call, and I'll explain that process to you in a few minutes. And once again, please press *3 or enter your question in the question box at www.ctnvirtualopenhouse.com to ask a question. Now let's turn the call over to Jennifer Hillhouse. Jen, would you please introduce yourself and get us started?
Yes, thank you, Hannah. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for an important conversation about transportation and an exciting new mobility program we're launching in your community. My name is Jennifer Hillhouse, and I'm the Director of Transportation and Mobility Planning for the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to discuss the Community Transportation Network, and wanted to send a special thanks to Council Hines, Torres, Clark, and Cashman for your continued support in helping spread the word about this important effort. Before we get started, I wanted to thank each of you for supporting the City and County of Denver in our efforts to protect public health and safety and mitigate potential spread of COVID-19. Upcoming community engagement activities related to the Community Transportation Network will occur virtually through a suite of accessible and engaging digital tools like this virtual meeting tonight. We thank you in advance for your patience as we roll out some new tools. In February of 2020, the City and County of Denver began working with stakeholders to implement a new strategy for planning transportation networks and quick build out of our high comfort bike network. Between now and 2023, Denver will be concentrating in 3 areas of city to implement a system of bikeways. We are calling these areas Central, Northwest, and South Central. Tonight, we are here to talk about the South Central Community Transportation Network. We need your feedback to understand what traveling is like in your neighborhood and where we should prioritize improvements. Community transportation networks are plans designed to improve walking, biking, taking transit, and driving. Denverites through Blueprint Denver consistently stated the need to prioritize our most vulnerable roadway users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit riders. Through this planning process, we want to hear all of your transportation ideas. We will then work to prioritize projects that address your priorities and improve transportation options. You may be familiar with Denver's Vision Zero Action Plan, which acknowledges that everyone has the right to safely travel on Denver streets, no matter what mode of transportation they use. Currently, fatalities on our roadways are growing at a faster rate than our population. It's our goal to reduce all traffic-related serious injuries and deaths to zero by 2030, and community transportation networks are designed to help us get there. Through this online meeting, we want to communicate 3 key takeaways for the South Central Community Transportation Network. 1, we have launched new online tools where we want you to review the information about biking, walking, taking transit, and safety in your neighborhood. Tonight, we will be discussing how you can use the tools to provide feedback about what is working and what is not working related to transportation in your neighborhood. 2, we'll be using your input to build new bikeways in South Central starting this year and continuing through 2023. Research indicates bicycle projects improve safety for all roadway users, and this network will make biking more comfortable, safe, convenient, with a goal to connect every Denverite to the places we want to go. And 3, we will also be using the information gathered from this community engagement effort to prioritize the sidewalk, safety, and transit needs and potential implementation strategies. We have multiple outreach opportunities during every phase of the program, including a stakeholder working group, public meetings, and online tools. Thanks again for joining us tonight. We are excited to be working with the community to ensure that this project delivers solutions that improve the quality of life and mobility for each and every one of you.
Thanks so much, Jen. We'll get to some questions in a moment. And just a reminder, if you have a question, please press *3 or enter it in the question box on the webpage, which is www.ctnvirtualopenhouse.com. We have an image here, if you're viewing online, of where the Ask a Question box is located under the presentation. I'd like to introduce Sam Piper, also with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, to provide more information about why we're here tonight.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you very much for that introduction. And I wanted to thank everyone in the audience, whether you're calling in or joining on your computer, for joining us to learn about this really important program that's kicking off in your community. And again, my name is Sam Piper, and I'm a transportation planner for the Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. I'm also the project manager for the planning component of the South Central Community Network. And again, I'm really excited to be kicking this off with you all today. And just to give you a little bit of context on where is the boundaries of the South Central Network, well, the South Central Network is located in the central part of Denver, right south of downtown. And if we're looking for some rough landmarks to define that boundary, it's roughly defined by Franklin Street on the east, which is the east side of Wash Park, downtown to the north, Platte River on the west, and the city boundary on the south. In fact, this area actually encompasses 12 neighborhoods that knit together this part of Denver. And just from a personal perspective, I have a lot of connection with this neighborhood. Like many Denverites, my first Denver apartment was located in Cap Hill. And like many of you, I love relaxing in Cheeseman Park, watching volleyball in Wash Park, and going to the Underground Music Fest along South Broadway. I really love all the wonderful places to eat, drink, and visit in this neighborhood. It's truly a great part of Denver. The Community Transportation Network relates to completed Denver planning efforts, which include the 2040 Denver Comprehensive Plan, Blueprint Denver, which is our city's land use and transportation plan, and the many Denver Moves modal plans that we have created. Together, these plans envision a Denver that is connected by safe, high-quality, multimodal transportation options. In all of these planning efforts, that theme consistently has risen to the top. In addition to past plans, there are numerous ongoing plans and projects happening right now in South Central Denver. And it's critical that we discuss these projects as we conduct the planning work in your neighborhood. Ashley, would you mind introducing yourself and discussing these topics with folks in the meeting?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. Happy to see so many folks on the call. I know you're all probably eager to enjoy this beautiful evening, but we're glad to have you here. My name is Ashley Grace. I work in the Department of Transportation Infrastructure in our design group. I'm a community designer and a project manager, which means that I help with the coordination and the management of design of major multimodal projects primarily in southeast quadrant of Denver. So that includes Caps Hill, Cheeseman Park, Country Club, Wash Park. My counterpart who works in Southwest Denver, Gabby, is also on the call, so she'll be able to speak to some of the things happening over in Council Districts 3 and 7. But we just wanted to acknowledge that in addition to this planning effort, as you can see, there are many other city-led efforts currently happening. And so we are very aware of those, and we are doing our best to coordinate with those so that all of the input you are, spending all your time giving us, whether it's through this or through any of these other planning efforts, we are definitely taking that into consideration. So some of those other efforts include Denver Moves Downtown, which is a project that's re-envisioning the city's downtown transportation system, and we'll be actually wrapping up in the next couple months. We have the East and East Central Neighborhood Planning Initiatives. That's the MPI that was launched in 2017 as part of the Denver's long-term commitment to ensure every corner of the city can enjoy the benefits of an area plan, and a lot of great recommendations came out of that we are building into this study as well. We have the Lincoln Park Neighborhood Transportation Management Plan, an action-oriented program that will kick off soon, actually, and last about 8 to 9 months, resulting in consensus around neighborhood-scale projects that will be implemented. The time frame, scope, and funding are then identified after we've done that effort. And of course, as you can see on the right hand of this slide, there are a number of projects already underway, from large-scale projects to paving projects. We're doing a lot of work in this area, and again, this effort, the South Central Community Network Planning effort, is working very hard to acknowledge those and build those into this planning that we're doing now. So with that, I will pass it back to Sam.
Ashley, thanks so much for that background. And one of the things we really wanted to emphasize is we know that there's a lot of work going on in your neighborhood, and we're going to continue to coordinate on those projects and those planning efforts so that we can move projects faster. And really that's the goal of this program, something that we hear frequently when we work with the community. And this planning effort ultimately will result in built projects. And again, our goal is to move projects faster. Projects that reflect the transportation network that Denverites have consistently stated that they want and that they value. The projects will provide numerous benefits for our community. And these benefits include the lives of our friends, family, and neighbors will be saved as we work towards zero traffic-related deaths and serious injuries. We will build a more sustainable, healthy, and economically resilient Denver. And we will be able to get to the places we want to go more safely, more easily, and more conveniently. And all of this is working towards helping to manage traffic as our city continues to grow. And with the end result being the vision to move more people through our streets.
Great. Thanks so much, Sam. It looks like we have over 100 attendees on our call right now, and I think this is a great time to take our first question regarding the Community Transportation Network and the work being done in South Central Denver. We've had questions pouring in since we started, but if you'd like to add to them, please press *3 if you're on the phone, or type your question in the question box online. All righty. Let me take a look at our questions. I think we have a good one queued up. This is from Danielle, who submitted this online, and her question is, will you be installing protective barriers between bike lanes and cars for new bike lanes? Again, this is from Danielle online, who is asking, will you be installing protective barriers between bike lanes and cars for new bike lanes? Sam, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, well, thank you, Danielle, for asking that question. And the short answer is yes. Some of the projects that we are prioritizing through this program will be protected bike lanes, and those have a physical barrier between where the bicyclists are riding and where the vehicles are driving. And the other thing I wanted to emphasize in a follow-up to that question is protected bike lanes are one type of bikeway that we will be moving forward through this program, and know that the emphasis is on building out a network of high comfort bikeways. And protected bike lanes, based on research, fall into that category of high comfort. And a new facility type that we'll be implementing through this program are what's called neighborhood bikeways. And these are also high comfort facilities implemented on low speed, low traffic streets that make bicycling and walking along those streets more comfortable. So just wanted to emphasize that we're really trying to build out high comfort bikeway networks, and protected bike lanes will be a critical element of that.
Great. Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Danielle, for your question. We have another question teed up, and it sounds like there are a number of related questions on this topic. This is from Amy, and her question was submitted online, and she is asking, how might the new shared streets implemented this month fit into our transportation network? How might the new shared streets implemented this month fit into our transportation network? I think that's a great question for Jen. Jen, would you like to answer Amy's question about shared streets fitting into the transportation network?
Yes, happy to. So thank you for that question. We are very excited about the efforts that we were able to implement pretty rapidly to serve our community through this difficult time. And those streets are really temporary in nature and plan to provide more recreational space for our neighborhoods to get out and enjoy the outdoors and bike and walk. But you bring up a good question on how do we maybe learn from this into the future. And these corridors are very important corridors, high pedestrian, connecting to important destinations such as parks. And so I think continuing to learn, we're collecting data on those streets right now, and we'll look into that through this process as well to understand how those streets might transform into the future.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks, Amy, again for your question. All right, we have another question from a community member who submitted online, and their question is, what are the plans for South Washington Street between Spear and I-25, if any? So they're specifically asking for plans, if they exist, for South Washington Street between Spear and I-25. Sam, do you want to take that question?
Yes, and I am visualizing that street currently, and my recollection is that there's an existing bike lane on that portion of the street. And what I wanted to emphasize is that the Community Network Transportation Program is really focused on filling gaps in the network, and we want to solicit feedback about what is your experience bicycling along that section of Washington and then the Clarkson just to the east of that. And so if the bike lane exists along that section of the street today, and for one reason or another, you think that should be improved, we have an online tool that we'll be discussing later in the presentation, and please give us that feedback. But what I did want to emphasize is currently the program is looking at filling the gaps in the network, so building out the network, completing the network, and not so much on upgrading existing bike lanes. And I say that with the caveat that we do still want feedback about those existing facilities, and if we get enough feedback, that can influence the direction of the program.
Great, thanks so much. Alrighty, I think this is also a good time for us to pause and ask a polling question. This is our first polling question of the evening. So a few directions here. If you're on the phone, please use your phone keypad to select your answer, and we will show the results on screen. If you're following along online, the poll will appear right under the question box on your browser. So our question is, if you commute to work, how do you typically get to work? Our first option, if you're on the phone, press 1 for walk, press 2 for bike, press 3 for transit, press 4 for drive, press 5 for Uber or Lyft, press 6 for working from home. Again, if you commute to work, how do you typically get to work? 1 for walk, 2 for bike, 3 for transit, 4 for drive, 5 for rideshare like Uber or Lyft, or 6 for work from home. Again, please use your phone keypad to select your answer, and I will share the results as they come in. If you're following along online, the poll will appear right near the question box. All right, so we are seeing a ton of responses come in. Right now, 40% of respondents indicate that they bike to work, followed by 27% who indicate that they drive, and that just changed to 25 as bike increased to 42%. So it looks like a majority of our respondents bike to work. We now have transit at 25%. We'll wait another moment or two for folks to get their answers in, and then I'll share the final results of the poll. Again, use your phone keypad to select your answer, and please choose one option. Alrighty, so it looks like bike has continued to net out as the top option here with 38%, followed by transit at 25%, and those who drive at 19%. Really interesting information. We have another one coming up for a few minutes, and I think this discussion will also be really relevant to our presentation that we have coming up on how Denver and South Central move. For those of you who joined us late, good evening, and thank you for joining tonight's virtual public meeting hosted by the City and County of Denver. My name is Hannah, and I'm your moderator tonight as we talk about Denver's Community Transportation Network program and what it means to South Central Denver. You can participate in the discussion by pressing *3 on your keypad. You'll be transferred to an operator who will take down basic information and get you in the queue. Those of you connected by computer, again, can type your question in the question box on the meeting webpage. We'd like to spend some time talking in greater detail about how people move in Denver in the South Central area, as I mentioned before. Sam, let's dive in.
Hey, thank you, Hannah. And before telling you about the online tool that we keep alluding to in the presentation, I would like to spend a few minutes talking about the various ways people move in and around your community, and the vision to move more people through our streets more safely, comfortably, and conveniently. And as I work through these slides, we're going to look at some data about how people walk, bike, and take transit in South Central Denver. And I think it'd be interesting to think about the results from the poll that Hannah provided to you all, and then the actual data for this network. So first I'm going to talk about walking specifically in South Central Denver. So in 2018, Denver prepared the citywide master plan to improve walking called Denver Moves, Pedestrians and Trails. The vision Denverites created for this plan was to develop a walking network that is safe and comfortable and that treats everyone with dignity. The dignity element is critical. Everyone, regardless of their abilities, deserves access to high-quality pedestrian infrastructure. The goal is to increase the percentage of people who walk to work in Denver from 6% to 15% who walk and bike to work by 2030. So about doubling this rate of walking and bicycling by the year 2030. And digging in a bit and seeing how that citywide goals compares specifically to South Central Denver, we see that this area has nearly twice the rate of walking to work compared to the rest of Denver. This could be attributed to the high quality of sidewalk network in this part of Denver. And when we look at that, when we look at the data, we see that about 93% of sidewalks meet standards. And by meeting standards, that means that they're wide enough given our engineering standards for how to construct a sidewalk today. In some of the newer parts of Denver, if you're thinking kind of the outer lying parts of the city and county of Denver, this number, when we run that, is typically much lower. Also, but that said, about 7% of the sidewalks do not meet today's sidewalk standards. In fact, they're too narrow to meet that standard. So we definitely have deficient sidewalks in this network. And then when we look at the roadway network as a whole, and Denver Moves did an analysis to determine where sidewalk gaps exist, we find that about 9% of streets in the network are missing sidewalks. So Denver Moves Pedestrians and Trails really prioritizes filling those gaps because those are seen as the weakest link in our sidewalk network. And as I've mentioned, we will be demoing a tool later in this presentation, and we're really looking for your feedback about what it's like to walk in South Central Denver. So hang tight, and we'll describe how you can do that, but know that that feedback will be critical. And similar to walking, in 2019, Denver finished its first citywide transit plan, Denver Moves Transit. And the vision Denverites expressed through this planning effort is to make transit more frequent and more reliable. These are two key factors, making buses and trains arrive more often, and making sure buses and trains arrive on time, that make taking transit a better option for more trips for most people. And with this, the goal is to increase the percentage of people who take transit to work in Denver from 6% to 15% by 2030. And again, when we compare the rate of people who are taking transit to work to the rest of the city and county of Denver, we see that transit ridership in South Central Denver is higher. We see about 8.8% of people who are taking transit to work compared to 6.5% of people in the rest of Denver. And this could be attributed to the fact that this area of Denver is relatively transit rich, again, compared to other parts of the city. In this area, we have 308 bus stops, 325 miles of bus routes, 8 high-volume bus routes, meaning that those buses arrive frequently, and 8 transit hubs and rail stations. Again, we will be demoing a tool later in this presentation, and similar to walking, we want feedback on what it's like to take transit in South Central Denver. And now with that, Bryce, would you mind explaining similarly biking in South Central Denver?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. My name is Bryce Hammerton, and I'm the engineering lead for these projects for the city and county of Denver. And I will be discussing our bicycle goals for the city. So our current mode share for walking and biking, as you just saw, is 6%. And we want to get this up to 15% by 2030. And to do this, we want to follow our Denver Moves bicycle vision, which is to build a connected citywide bicycle network that is safe, comfortable, and convenient for people of all ages and ability levels. So next slide. To accomplish this goal, we have 113 miles of planned bikeways to add to our current existing total of 24 miles within the South Central region. This makes a total bike network of 137 miles. And after the community networks projects are completed, 2/3 of this total will be built out. Another interesting fact is that 4.8% of commuters bike to work in this South Central region, which is about double what Denver's average is overall. A reason for this could be the great bicycling assets that the region has, such as the Platte River Trail and the Cherry Creek Trail. And this is one of the reasons why South Central was prioritized to begin build out. And then to the right side of this slide, you can see a graphic which depicts the feedback tool, which we'll be covering in a little bit. And now I will pass it back to Sam.
Hey, Bryce, thanks very much for providing those details and really highlighting the ambition to dramatically increase the miles of bikeways in South Central Denver. We wanted to reiterate how important it is right now to be, folks on the phone to provide feedback via the online tool that we're going to demo so that we can verify the bicycling network in South Central Denver, which was recommended in our 2015 Denver Moves Citywide Bike Master Plan. Getting your feedback now is critical to advancing the right projects. We also wanted to note at this point that we will be launching surveys in addition to the online tool that will help us get a better understanding of your priorities along specific corridors in the network. Links to these online surveys will be provided in a follow-up to this meeting and posted to the website. So please stay tuned for these, and when they do pop up on the website, we'd really encourage you to spread them to your family, to your friends, and to your neighbors so that we can get a lot of feedback on what those priorities are for your community. And with that, I'm excited to unveil the online interactive tool. And Gabby, would you mind taking that away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sam. Hello, everybody. I'm Gabby Cerrado. I work with Dottie with the rest of the teammates that you're hearing here tonight. And just like my counterpart, Ashley Grace, I help coordinate the project, multimodal projects in Council Districts 2, 3, and 7. For the South Central area, that includes the Baker, Lincoln, La Alma, West Wash Park, Overland, and Platt Park neighborhoods. As you have heard throughout this presentation, Denver will be rapidly building our bikeway network in order to achieve our goal of 125 miles of bike lanes by 2023. The South Central network holds many of these projects that we want to advance into implementation. This is where we desperately need your help. We want your feedback on the proposed network to confirm what projects to advance into design and construction from the Denver Moves plan. And since we already have you confirming the bike network, we also hope that you give us your feedback about the other ways you move through our streets. We want to know your opinion about how you're walking, the transit, driving, safety through this very fancy, easy to use online tool. Through this virtual map tool, you can submit your feedback, your comments, ideas on how to improve the transportation infrastructure in your neighborhood. So now our lovely moderator, Hannah, is actually going to be in my hands as I walk you through this lovely map tool. Hannah, if you don't mind, let's go live. So at the bottom of the virtual open house page, you will see basically, it will show you, so you will see the 3 locations for the South Central Transportation Network. Obviously for our side, it's the South Central. If you don't mind clicking on that one. Then basically this map gives you, on the right side of the screen, we have the legend that includes an explanation on the existing bike facilities, planned bike facilities, sidewalks that will show up on the map tool itself. The base map that you see in front of you gives you information on the existing routes. So for example, the solid lines that you see, Hannah, if you don't mind zooming in just a little bit. So the solid lines means the existing routes, and then the dashed lines means proposed. So if you just click, Hannah, in one of the dash ones, it will pull up information about that particular. So that is the East Jewel Avenue Neighborhood Bikeway itself. Thank you very much. Now the legend is divided into sort of by modes. If you go to the left portions and if you scroll down just a little bit, you will see that speeding and any sort of vehicular issues are sort of in purple. We have bicycles in orange, pedestrians in green, transit in red, and any sort of any sight distance issues, any visual issues, they are on blue. So also at the top of the page, you will see a couple of tabs. You have home, map, survey, show comments, view legend, and contact. So we strongly encourage you to start from the comments tab. That way you get to see what your neighbors are saying about your neighborhood itself, what issues they have come up. So if you don't mind clicking on that, that's awesome. Now you can see, well, this was supposed to be the big launch for this online tool. A lot of people have already provided their feedback over this past week. Now let me show you how we're going to add new comments. As the community designer for West Wash Park, I hear a lot from your neighbors about safety issues crossing Downing and Mississippi as a pedestrian. So Hannah, if you don't mind, let's zoom in into the intersection area. Nice. Once there, you will open, you have your legend section on your left side, and you're going to basically click on the general issue that you are trying to sort of let us know, provide your feedback on. In this particular case is where is the first tab, where's it hard to cross as a pedestrian. So you're going to click on that. And then you're going to, the big question mark is going to pop up. You're going to hover that over your the location that you want us to know about. You're going to drop that pin, and then you're going to describe the issue that you're seeing in your neighborhood. So yes, issue it's not safe to cross. I don't feel comfortable crossing. There is no traffic signal or something along those lines. Once you're done submitting that comment, you click send. And that's pretty, it's that simple. You can continue through the system. You can add additional comments. If, for example, if you select another one of the different tabs, some of the tabs, it gives you the ability to select more comments, such as narrow sidewalks, or in the transit one, no shelter. So just select from the drop-down menu. If by any chance you change your mind about a particular comment, just click cancel. Now, for example, as you see that there's already a lot of comments that have already come in through these on the online map. So if you already you go down to your location that you want, and there's already a comment there. So let's do that, Hannah. Let's go to, what is it? I'm sorry, I totally forgot where we're going to go. Washington, no, Williams and by Cheeseman Park, by the entrance. So we have, so let's continue to scroll down. So we have that bike comment, if you don't mind clicking on that. And we already have 2 likes on that particular comment. So basically, it's sort of like Facebook. You're going to like or dislike. However, unlike Facebook, once you like something or dislike something, the system will register. You cannot take it back. So just as an FYI. If you want to provide additional comments, just click on View Add Comments. And if you don't mind, and then just type in again what additional elements you want to add for that comment, and just click Send. Excellent. Now, once Sam also mentioned the survey that we have. On the top, the third tab right there, we have our survey that we want to know a little more information about your preferences as a neighborhood. It's a very quick, less than 5 minutes, so you can provide us your info, and at the bottom, you just click select, and it just sends it our way. If by any chance, there you go, thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much. And then if you see also on the very last tab, if by any chance you're having problems with the survey, just click Contact Us in the top bar, provide details about the issue, and a member of the project team will follow up with you to troubleshoot any issues that you may have on it. The team tried to make this mapping tool as easy and robust as possible. So people usually take about 5 to 15 minutes on the map, because you just want to sort of keep on adding all the different feedback and opinions that you have. The Dottie team is heavily relying on this tool, as we need your feedback on verifying the bike network from the Denver Moves plan as we continue moving forward with the implementation of our high comfort bikeways. And we're also obviously interested in learning about the other modes, pedestrian, how you're taking the transit, safety improvements that we need to address. So please enter those comments on this tool as well. We would love to have your feedback and comments by April 30th. So definitely, if you don't mind, definitely spending the weekend just providing your comments. So that wraps up a little bit about the mapping tool itself. Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, Gabby, thank you so much for doing that overview of the online input map. And what I wanted to speak about is, once you provide that feedback, how are we going to use that going forward? And so, as Ashley noted earlier in our presentation, is there's a lot of past work, and know that we are working hard to coordinate and consolidate feedback from those ongoing planning initiatives to identify priorities. So that's, if you're looking at this slide, that's the kind of the first column here. And where we are right now, we're at number 2. We're in the plan phase, kicking off today the Community Transportation Network. And during this phase, our priority is to bring data forward, which we are currently evaluating, as well as collecting feedback in areas of South Central Denver where we have not had the opportunity to ask mobility questions, combine it with that past feedback, vet priorities, and confirm transportation networks. We'll then move rapidly into phase 3, which is the implement phase. During this phase, we'll be implementing bike projects that reflect community priorities and, based on your feedback, identifying opportunities to move additional projects forward using other mobility programs. And these include our safety program, our sidewalk program, transit program, and other programs such as the DOTI signal program. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Hannah, and we can take some more questions from the audience.
Great. Thanks, Sam, for following up on Gabby's great presentation of the map tool. I know that was a lot of information to share with everyone, so this is a good time for us to take a break and answer some questions. I'm going to take a look at the questions that have come in, and it looks like we have a first question submitted by Amanda. There are a number of related questions, and her question is, will high comfort bikeways be protected bike lanes or just paint? So this question is coming from Amanda, and her question is, will high comfort bikeways be protected bike lanes or just paint? Sam, do you want to cover that?
Sure. So protected bike lanes will include physical infrastructure, so not just paint. And I don't want to dive too much into the weeds of bikeway design, but I think it's enough to say that I just wanted to confirm with folks on the phone tonight and joining via the web that there's 2 facilities in Denver that we consider high comfort bikeways. Those are protected bike lanes. So those have a physical barrier between where bicyclists ride and where vehicles travel. And then in addition to that, the neighborhood bikeways that I discussed previously, which are implemented on low speed, low traffic streets. And while those projects will include unique pavement markings and wayfinding signage to help people find their way on those streets, they will also include changes to intersections and along the streets themselves to make sure vehicles are traveling slowly and that the traffic along those streets is in line with what it takes to make biking and walking along a street comfortable. So just wanted to emphasize that our projects are beyond just paint, and those high comfort bikeways will include those additional elements in projects.
Great.
Thank you for that question.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Amanda, thanks so much for your question. Sam, thanks for taking that on. We have another question coming in from Peter, who is asking about street design changes. Before we jump into that question, I do just want to remind everyone following along, if you have a question about the different modes people use to move around the city or the online map tool that we just walked through, please press *3 or type it into the question box on your webpage. We can take a few more questions from the audience. Again, this is Peter, who has a question about whether street design changes will be included as the end result of this project. So Peter, submitting an online question, wants to know, will street design changes be included as the end result of this project? Bryce, as a design lead, do you want to handle that question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Anna. And thanks for your question, Peter. Yes, they will be included as the end result of this project. Just some of the things that we look at are volume and speeds of the road really are what dictate what type of facility we're going to choose. That being a neighborhood bikeway, protected bike lane, or buffered bike lane. So obviously the higher volume and higher speed roads, we would want a protected bike lane there. We look at parking utilization. which can dictate if we want to keep parking. We look at signal timing adjustments. Maybe we've provided a bike symbol in the past. We look at volumes for turning movements at intersections. So a higher right turn, for example, if there's a high number of right turns, we might move the bike lane to inside of the right turn lane. Volume at driveways can determine how bike lanes interact with driveways. And then safety at intersections is obviously very important. So complex intersections take more thought. Yeah, so that, I hope that answers your question. And yeah.
Thanks, Bryce, and thank you, Peter, for submitting that question. It wouldn't be a true Q&A without a question about funding. So we have one from Charles, who submitted online, and he asked, considering funding, how many transportation projects in the plan will actually get funded and built, and when? So Charles is asking, considering funding, how many transportation projects in the plan will actually get funded and built, and when? Sam, how about you take this question?
Sure, Charles. Well, thank you for queuing up that question for us. And the way that we are implementing the community transportation network in South Central Denver is by combining a couple of different funding streams. And one of them is the 2017 Elevate Denver Bond, also known as the GO Bond. And so many of the bicycle projects that we are advancing through this network were funded through that bond. So that's a portion of how projects are going to be constructed. In addition to that, annually, Denver sets aside resources for different programs, including sidewalks or our transit program. And in the case of South Central Denver, we have our bicycle program. So the bicycle program resources are being used to construct projects in this network as well. Now, currently, the bicycle projects in these networks are what we have funded. And we recognize, and you can already see it in the online input map, there's a lot of feedback about the other ways that people move through this network and thoughts that people have about improving, and what are those prioritized for improving walking or transit or safety at intersections. And so we've got a few different mechanisms to move those projects forward and determine how do we fund them. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got our transit program, we have a sidewalk program, and we can actually take feedback that you're giving to us and based on what the priorities are, match those up with a funding program in the future. So your feedback will be critical to determine how we move projects forward and what our next steps are. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you for submitting it.
Great question, and thanks, Sam, for answering that. I think it's a good time to take a minute to ask all of you participants another polling question. So a quick reminder on how to access the poll. If you're calling in by phone, please use your phone keypad to select your answers, and I will share the results with you. If you're following along online, the poll will appear right under the question box where you can submit questions to the project team. So our second question tonight is, which parts of the street should be given highest priority? Press 1 for comfortable sidewalks. Press 2 for comfortable bikeways. Press 3 for reliable drive time. Press 4 for the safety of all users. Press 5 for fast and reliable transit. Press 6 for parking vehicles. Please record your vote now, and I'll share results with you in just a minute or two. Again, if you'd like to submit an answer, please use your phone keypad. And if you're following along online, there is a poll section right under the question box under the video streaming box. And our question again is, which parts of the street should be given highest priority? 1, comfortable sidewalks. 2, comfortable bikeways. 3, reliable drive time. 4, safety for all users. 5, fast and reliable transit. 6, parking vehicles. We've had a bunch of results come in, and no surprise based on our work, in the quarter on these types of projects, the number one answer at 57% was the safety for all users. So that's a major priority of the community. That's something that we've heard loud and clear through our work in the community. The second highest priority at 18% is comfortable bikeways. And the third at 11% is comfortable sidewalks. So these answers, I think, are really interesting. They're not surprising based on how this community gets around. And I think this is some really great feedback that we're getting from the community. It looks like a few of you have some questions about how the network areas were selected. So if we can take a moment to answer that specific question since it came up. Sam, can you walk through how the first 3 network areas were selected?
Certainly. So Denver Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, actually when we were still Denver Public Works, developed a data-driven analysis to determine how we could achieve our really ambitious modal goals. And by modal goals, I mean those slides that I covered that said how we're going to shift people to walk more, to bike more, to use more transit. And when we evaluated where there might be the most opportunity to move the needle on these elements, the underlying data indicated it was those communities surrounding downtown. And I think that also potentially became more clear when we looked at how many folks in this area walk and bike and take transit today. So the way that these networks were selected was using, again, multiple underlying factors such as population and employment density and equity and the ability for, how people move today and how they might move in the future, as well as the underlying networks and connectivity, both existing and proposed. So it was that analysis that resulted in these 3 networks. Now with that, I do want to emphasize that the goal of our organization is to do community transportation networks all across the city. We needed to start somewhere, and the data indicated that this was the best place based on those factors to get started. But we really do hope to come to every neighborhood across Denver with this program. So we're excited to be launching it here, but know that it's our goal to work across the city.
Great, thanks, Sam. Before we run out of time, how about you quickly talk about how the public can keep up to date on the Community Transportation Network?
Yeah, Hannah. So the best ways to stay engaged with the Community Transportation Network is to visit our project webpage. And that's displayed on the screen here. And for folks calling in, that's ctnvirtualopenhouse.com. So that's going to be the central clearinghouse for all information about this, where you can download a project fact sheet, view meeting materials such as a recording of this presentation, review FAQs, stay up to date on new announcements. And also, if there's additional questions or curiosities that you have, please, you can submit a comment through the website or just email us denvermoves@denvergov.org, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Great, thanks, Sam. I also just want to flag for folks on the phone, in order to sign up for project updates, you can press *6 to share your contact information with an operator. So we send out email distributions to let you know about these meetings coming up, opportunities to engage. So if you'd like to, our screeners, our question screeners, will stay on the line through the end of the meeting and beyond. If you'd like to share your contact information, they will collect that contact information and send that over to us. So please, again, just press *6 to share your contact information with an operator. Next, I also, before we close out the meeting, I want to talk through our schedule moving forward. We're anticipating reaching out to the community for our next virtual open house late spring, early summer, and we will be in touch with more details as we near closer to that event. As we conclude tonight, we just want to recap the project schedule and reaffirm the 5 major steps that we're going through. So it's plan, prioritize, incorporate feedback, design, and implement. So again, we're currently in the plan phase, which includes using data and community input to understand your opinions of the transportation network. Then we'll be prioritizing with the help of our project technical team and stakeholder advisory committee. We'll begin to identify what projects would happen in the near term and or the long term. Third, we'll then be incorporating feedback into existing programs to better understand implementation opportunities. Design for bike improvements is anticipated to begin early to mid-summer, going through the fall of 2020. And then by late summer 2020, we'll begin to build and implement some of our early action bikeway paving projects. I do want to remind you that this presentation and the materials will be posted on the website, so ctnvirtualopenhouse.com. So we'll make sure that you can dig in as needed. Thanks so much again for joining, everyone. We're sorry if we didn't get to your question tonight, but we will get back to questions via email or phone calls in the coming days. And we really look forward to continuing to engage with you on the Community Transportation Networks project in the coming months. So until then, have a great night and please stay safe. Thanks all. This concludes our call.